The Unseen Visitor. Chapter 1. The Whispering Walls. I never believed in ghosts, at least not until the day I moved into the old Victorian house on Elm Street. It was a beautiful relic of the past, with intricate carvings adorning its facade and a porch that seemed to whisper secrets to the wind. The town of Ashwood whispered stories of this place too. Tales of lost souls, unfinished lives, and mysteries that only the walls could tell. I settled into my new home, eager to start college in the nearby university and leave behind memories of a troubled past. The first night was peaceful until the whispers began. At first, it sounded like someone softly calling my name, Sarah. In the darkness, I lay awake, listening intently as the whisper grew louder, yet remained just out of earshot. My imagination? Surely? But when the sun rose and morning light crept through the windows, the voice vanished, leaving behind only echoes of silence. The following nights brought more frequency, with whispers seeping from every corner. A gentle murmur at first, then an insistent plea for help. I tried to ignore it, but it was no use. Each night, they grew louder and closer, as if standing right outside my door. My heart pounded in rhythm with the wind that rustled through the trees. That's when I noticed them. Marks on the walls, barely visible under layers of dust. Faint, but unmistakable, were words penned in a childlike scrawl. Find me. They seemed to dance along the paintwork, beckoning for attention. Curiosity consumed me as I pried at the stains until they revealed themselves fully. The faded ink told the tale of a young boy, pleading for release from darkness that had engulfed him a century ago. His story spoke of being buried alive in this very house, entombed by his own family's guilt and fear. Shivers traced down my spine. I brushed it off as urban legend. Yet on the third night, new whispers emerged. Not in words, but an eerie melody that seeped through walls and floorboards. Hauntingly beautiful, yet discordant. It was then I saw movement from the corner of my eye. A fleeting shadow darting behind the furniture. In the morning light, the room remained still and silent, leaving me questioning what truly lived here. Days passed as classes took over, but each evening brought fresh encounters. Shadows in the garden, flickering lights, unexplained drafts. My roommate Emily returned home from summer vacation to find me shaken. Over steaming coffee, I confided in her about the whispers, hoping she'd dismiss it all with reason. She listened intently, eyes wide behind thick-rimmed glasses, before suggesting we investigate further. We ventured upstairs, tracing back the whispers to the loft where a hidden door, camouflaged by age and shadows, concealed a small chamber. Dust motes danced as we entered. In this forgotten space, our voices bounced off stone walls. There, on the corner of a faded photograph, was another message. Forgive me. Emily's breath caught when I pointed it out, her gaze flicking between the words and my pale face. It seemed to be leading us somewhere. Chapter 2. The Disappearing Photograph. My friend Lila arrived for a visit from the city, camera always by her side. She had an affinity for photography and was eager to capture Ashwood's quaint essence. Under twilight sky, we approached the house. Shadows crept longer as if trying to engulf us before shrinking away at our approach. Our laughter seemed hollow in the stillness. We ascended the creaky stairs and entered the loft, camera flash illuminating dust laden air. One shot captured both of us in front of an aged portrait, but when we reviewed it later on Lila's phone, there was no image to be found. Just a photo of an empty room with shadows dancing like dark spirits. The memory card was full. The picture must have been deleted accidentally. However, my recollection remained vivid. It wasn't until I opened the hidden door again that unease prickled at the back of my neck. Behind me, on the same faded photograph, the message had changed. "Find me now." Emily's hand tightened around her arm as I turned to face her. She murmured, "Sarah?" before a gust swept through and snatched her away from view. A scream pierced the air, muffled by distance and my racing heart. Rounding each corner of the chamber, I called out until hoarse lungs coughed up Emily's name. No response. In desperation, I tugged open the door to the loft, expecting a bruised and frustrated friend, but found only fading light outside. Lila's camera lay on the floor. Shaken, I hastened downstairs, heart pounding in my ears. The front door slammed shut behind me as if locked by unseen hands. Threading between shadows within, I reached for it when an icy hand grasped mine from behind. A whisper breathed against my ear. "They've been waiting." Emily's muddied voice called out, "Sarah," and I spun to behold her drenched clothes clung to her frame, face pale under a mess of golden hair. We fled the house, but in the car, she whispered, "The boy is real." Before I could react, my phone beeped. An unread text from Emily. "He's coming." The message arrived with no caller ID or sender. Chapter 3. The Forgotten Secret. In the attic, I discovered a dusty journal. Pages yellowed by age and decay spoke of Nathaniel, buried alive in this very house by his own family in 1852 for reasons unknown to history. His voice echoed in my mind as I turned pages, Nathaniel's cries echoing long after he had been entombed. The entries mentioned strange dreams and visions that drove him mad, a sense of being trapped while the world outside moved without him. A chill prickled the air as temperature dropped precipitously. Iced coffee spilled on my hand, forgotten in my shock. Nathaniel's madness escalated until his family buried him alive. I heard laughter, low, rasping, and ancient. It was then that shadows began to dance across the walls. "Don't run," the journal warned, echoing the wind outside, yet I sprinted down flights of stairs, not knowing where else to go. In my room, Lila clung to me, panting heavily. I saw him, an old man with sunken eyes and a smile carved from sorrow. Shadows crept up the walls as Nathaniel's voice whispered for release, pleading to be found. In the heart of this labyrinthine house, secrets awaited. As I read on, a window shattered, shards pattering across the floor below. Lila's hands trembled, pressing against my arm as we descended to investigate. Outside stood an elderly man with eyes that had seen the weight of a century, his smile both sorrowful and malevolent under sunken lids. Nathaniel was finally free. He spoke of unfinished business, a debt to pay. The wind howled as he vanished into darkness, leaving behind a piece of paper on shards. Words from a forgotten era were scrawled upon it. "Find peace within these walls." I stared at Lila's pale face and whispered, "He wants you too." Her response was lost in the wind that snuffed out the moonlight. The door slammed shut behind us as Nathaniel's laughter reverberated in darkness. We huddled together when his voice whispered a final plea, "Don't run." A door we never knew existed creaked, revealing an underground chamber where Nathaniel was entombed, chains binding him until release found him. I pried the manacles free with shaking hands as he exhaled for the first time in over a century and a half. His gratitude turned to despair. His eyes reflected sorrow and longing. With Lila missing or hiding, I made a silent promise. No matter what lay ahead, she would not remain buried here. In Nathaniel's presence, an ethereal light emerged. It swallowed us both as the past reconciled with the present, and Nathaniel found release from his torment beneath stone. We were left outside where Lila waited on shaking legs. Nathaniel's smile was no longer a sorrowful thing, but one of liberation before vanishing into nothingness. When I turned to question her, my breath hitched. She wasn't there either. The world seemed to right itself with a sigh. No sound escaped the now, the quiet chamber as we stumbled out under the moonlight. And in that silence, Emily's form materialized beside Lila. They hadn't been taken. They'd never left the house. Lila whispered, "Sarah." Shadows still danced before disappearing into darkness. With finality, Nathaniel vanished upstairs, leaving a silent chamber, a journal, and 2 women. It was only then we heard his voice in unison with our racing breaths. "Find peace within these walls."